My name is Afton Walker. I'm 27 years old, and for a while, I thought I was planning a wedding. Turns out I was conducting an audit. I didn't know that word yet. I didn't have the language for it. I just knew something felt wrong in a way I couldn't point to without sounding paranoid. There was no explosion, no obvious betrayal, just a quiet misalignment, like a picture frame hanging a few degrees off center. You don't notice it until you do, and then you can't stop seeing it. I work in tech, from home. I'm the person people hand problems to when they want them solved without drama. I don't slam doors. I don't rant. I document. I back things up. I make sure there's a trail. That habit saved me later. At the time, it just made me feel lonely. The house was mine. I bought it 2 years before I met my fiancé, Evan. It wasn't flashy, just clean lines, good bones, a place that felt steady. Evan moved in after a year. 5 years together total. We had chemistry, the kind that makes people lean in at dinner parties. He was quick, funny, socially effortless. I was quieter, steadier, the one who remembered to pay bills before they became problems. We split life the way couples do when they think they're building something fair. I handled the big expenses: mortgage, utilities, insurance. I also paid his private student loan, auto pay, my account, my credit. At the time, it felt temporary. Team effort. Investment in a future that had both our names on it. He handled the social side, birthdays, trips, keeping the calendar human, convincing me to eat vegetables that didn't come in nugget form. It worked, until it didn't. The proposal was simple, no spectacle, just takeout from his favorite place, a clean kitchen, and me wearing a dress that didn't scream client meeting. I didn't want a crowd, I wanted sincerity. When he said yes, he cried. Then he immediately took a dozen photos of the ring, like the internet might reward him for speed. I laughed. I thought it was cute. I thought it meant he was excited. I didn't realize excitement and performance can look identical from the outside. Enter Lena, his lifelong best friend. 10 years. Shared jokes, shared hobbies, shared emotional shorthand that didn't include me. She was beautiful in a way that made people forgive things. When I met her, she had a boyfriend. I told myself not to be the kind of woman who inventories threats. Evan once told me Lena had confessed feelings years ago, and he shut it down. He said it casually, like a footnote. I nodded, filed it away, and moved on. 3 weeks after the engagement, we started building the guest list. I offered to pay for Lena's flight. She lived out of state. It felt like the right thing to do. Evan hesitated, said maybe it should be family only. That confused me, because 5 minutes earlier, he'd referred to her as basically family. Then he said it. He hadn't told her we were engaged. Not forgot, not waiting for the right moment. Just hadn't told her. That landed wrong in my chest. I asked why. He shrugged and said it was private, which was an impressive choice, considering he'd blasted the news across group chats the night it happened and updated his status before the ring was even resized. I didn't push, not then. After that, his routines changed in small, technical ways. His phone stopped leaving his hand. Bathroom trips with it like it was a medical device. Notifications silenced but vibrating Morse code on the table. He angled the screen away when he texted, like he'd learned a new reflex. Then Lena broke up with her boyfriend. That same week, Evan's phone practically fused to his palm. He smiled at it in ways that didn't reach me. He started leading sentences with, Lena said, I noticed. I always notice. The night everything snapped wasn't dramatic. No yelling, no confrontation. I was in the living room, building a Lego set, Rivendell, because apparently I cope with fantasy worlds that have rules, while Evan was working in the bedroom. The Bluetooth speaker in the kitchen auto-connected, the way it always does. It crackled to life. I heard my own name, then Evan's voice, then hers. If I have to hear about one more of her stupid little projects, I'm going to scream, he said. Lena laughed. You've outgrown her. You know that, right? I didn't move. I didn't cough. I didn't make a sound. I just listened as they talked about me like I wasn't real, like I was an inconvenience, a phase, something to be managed until something better worked out. That was the moment the frame snapped straight. I didn't cry. I didn't confront him. I turned the speaker off and sat there, very still, with the kind of calm that only shows up when your brain stops negotiating with hope. That was when I stopped asking myself if I was imagining things. That was when I stopped being a fiancé and became an investigator. Because technology is honest by default. People add the lies later. And if I was going to lose the future I thought I was building, I was at least going to understand exactly how. There's a moment after a realization like that where your body wants to sprint ahead of your mind. Mine didn't. It slowed down. That's the thing about grief when it's quiet. It sharpens you. I didn't confront Evan that night. I didn't check his phone. I didn't ask questions that would invite lies. I went to bed, stared at the ceiling, and let the part of my brain that fixes broken systems take over. If something was wrong, the data would tell me. I just had to stop pretending I didn't want to see it. Months earlier, I'd set up an old iPad in the kitchen for recipes and background videos while cooking. Evan wanted access to a paid recipe app, so we signed into his Apple ID. When you do that, Apple tries very politely to braid your devices together. Message forwarding, shared photos, mirrored notifications. He'd enabled it without thinking. Then he forgot. The notifications on the iPad were usually off. Background noise while sautéing didn't need pop-ups. After the engagement, I updated a few apps, toggled a setting without noticing, and went on with my life. A week after the Bluetooth incident, I was chopping onions when a banner slid across the screen. Lena, you up? Timestamp, 1:14 a.m. I didn't touch the iPad. I didn't open anything. I just watched. 2 more banners followed within a minute. Nothing explicit. Nothing you could screenshot and scream about. Just tone. Late-night tone. Intimate in a way friends don't need to be. I treated each banner like what it was. A timestamp, not a confession. I kept living. I scheduled venue visits. I nodded through conversations about colors and seating charts. I went into our shared calendar to stack errands and noticed something odd. The weekend after the proposal was completely empty. Empty, even though Evan had spent that entire weekend smiling into his phone like he'd discovered religion. Then he asked me to help fix the lighting on his ring photos. They were already synced to the iPad. I swiped up on one to check the metadata. 11 photos of his hand, taken the night of the proposal. 0 shares. He hadn't texted them to anyone, not his parents, not friends, not Lena. Meanwhile, his iCloud showed brunch photos, gym mirror shots, random memes, shared widely and immediately. But not the ring, not the engagement. That told me more than any message ever could. I started checking patterns instead of content. Dates, gaps, deletions, the absence of things where there should have been noise. I didn't need explicit betrayal to know I was being edited out of someone else's story. The phrase that stuck with me came later, scrolling through mirrored previews I wasn't supposed to see. You're the only one who really gets me. I hate when she acts like this. That's not friendship. That's exit planning. I still didn't confront him. Part of me wanted to believe I was wrong, that this was grief talking. My dad had died 6 months earlier, and Evan had been distant. Not cruel, just absent. I'd told myself everyone handles loss differently. That was generous. The canyon finally opened during another guest list conversation. I said Lena could come, calmly, no edge. I wanted to see what he'd do when there was nowhere left to hide. He repeated family only like it was a script. I told him there was a difference between privacy and keeping someone in orbit. His face went cold in a way I'd never seen. The words came out of me without heat, like I was reading a weather report. If you can't be honest about her, I said, maybe we shouldn't get married. He stared at me for a long second. Then he unlocked his phone, tilted it so I could see, and typed. Hey, just so you know, I was engaged, but not anymore. He hit send. Then he put the phone down like he'd just won something. That was the billboard moment. He wasn't confused. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't lost. He chose. I didn't yell. I walked to the bedroom, grabbed his suitcase, and slid it across the floor. Pack, I said. He cycled through everything. Shock, tears, anger, accusations of control, sudden amnesia. I didn't engage. Silence is unbearable when someone is used to negotiating reality. He left. The aftermath was loud. Texts, calls, missed calls. He called my mother, who told me I was being dramatic. That earned her a block. I don't take advice from people who benefit from my compliance. 2 days later, Evan FaceTimed me from his car. Soft lighting. Reasonable voice. It wasn't like that, he said. I only texted her. We weren't really engaged yet. You kept pushing. I panicked. Not an apology. A root cause analysis that blamed the environment. I didn't argue. I offered terms. 30 days. Probation. Boring, non-negotiable guardrails. No contact with Lena. In writing. An email that said, I'm engaged. There will be no more personal contact. Please block me. CC me and a counselor's office admin. Prenup consultation scheduled. He agreed to everything, cried, said I was being so mature, hugged the air like he was already telling a redemption story. I titled the calendar Invite Trust Probation because branding matters. He lasted 72 hours. 3 days later, he forgot our counselor check-in and posted a story from a rooftop bar that just happened to be on Lena's block. I knew the area. I recognized the reflection in the window, her lamp. When I called him on it, he pivoted. You're overreacting. You're controlling. You've become so insecure. I had tried. I'd given him a lane and he'd turned it into an exit ramp. That was when I stopped wondering if love could fix this and started planning how to shut everything down cleanly. Because complex people who can't follow simple rules will always break the system. And I was done paying for the crashes. Once you see someone clearly, you can't unsee them. The grief is different then. Cleaner, less desperate. It stops asking why and starts asking what now. That's where I landed after Evan's rooftop slip. The moment he tried to convince me geography was coincidence and boundaries were abuse. I didn't argue. I opened notes. The wedding went first. I called the venue on a Tuesday morning, voice steady, polite enough to sound rehearsed. The coordinator did that soft, I'm so sorry to hear tone that sounds like it was designed in a call center. She told me the deposit was non-refundable. I said I understood and asked for a cancellation letter in writing, with the exact wording they'd use if anyone called, asking about a date that no longer existed. Per client request, the reservation has been canceled. Clean, bloodless, final. Florist, DJ, photographer, tuck shop. Each call was the same. Apologies, partial refunds, confirmation numbers. I screenshotted everything and dropped it into a folder labeled, We're done. Not dramatic, accurate. Then the ring. In my state, engagement rings are conditional gifts. No wedding, no gift. I printed the statute, highlighted the relevant lines like a high school study guide, and added the appraisal and insurance policy. I asked for the ring back in the kitchen, calmly, like I was asking for a borrowed charger. Evan tried misty eyes first, then entitlement. He said we were basically married, because we'd picked napkin colors, because he'd posted future Mrs. photos, because he'd told people. I slid the folder across the counter. No marriage, I said, no gift. He stared at the highlights like they were radioactive, threatened a lawyer, name-dropped a cousin who was basically pre-law. I handed him a copy of his own words, screenshots from the mirrored messages where he admitted telling Lena he wasn't engaged and hiding conversations after the proposal. Bring this to your attorney, I said. Saves billable time. The ring went into a safe deposit box that afternoon. Next, the money. I canceled the wedding. I canceled the fantasy. Now I canceled access. I'd been paying Evan's private student loan for over a year. Auto pay, my bank, my credit. I'd set it up when I thought partnership was a real word. I called the lender, removed my payment method, asked for written confirmation. Then I called my bank and killed the card token so nothing could magically reconnect. The fraud rep said, "Good move," in the same tone lifeguards use when someone stops sprinting near the pool. I texted Evan one sentence. Your auto pay is canceled. The explosion was immediate. I was a thief for taking back his ring, greedy for canceling vendors, obligated to continue paying his loans like a real woman. He itemized what I owed him. Half the refunds, the car I bought, moving costs, nails, hair, gas, emotional interest, and a $500 inconvenience fee. He actually typed, "Legally, you have 24 hours." I didn't respond. I sent one final message later that night. Conditional gift. Refunds went to buyers. Auto pay is over. Handle your bills. Then I blocked him. A week later, he moved in with Lena. Their feeds became a Pinterest board. Sunlit kitchens, matching mugs, captions about choosing happiness. People commented hearts. I didn't look twice. You don't need to tour wreckage to know it's wreckage. My life got quieter. I slept like it was my job. Redirected subscriptions. Fixed a leaky faucet I'd been ignoring. Moved my budget from engagement bleed to maintenance and investments. Changed passwords. Updated beneficiaries. Changed the garage code because smart homes remember. 4 months passed. Then, on a Thursday evening, someone knocked on my door like they didn't want the neighbors to hear. It was Evan. Makeup worn thin by humidity and panic. Hair doing morale. He held a tote bag stuffed with unopened mail, red letters peeking out like warning flares. His posture was smaller, folded in on itself. Can we talk? He asked. I said nothing and stepped aside. He started with apologies that wanted discounts. Said Lena wasn't who he thought, that she expected him to split everything. Rent, utilities, groceries. Partners split bills, I said. His eyes went glassy. He was behind. Loans, cards, insurance, phone, stacked. He needed help, just for a month or two, to get back on his feet. Then he said the quiet part. Let's just go back, he said. Pretend that fight didn't happen. I shook my head. This isn't a time machine, I said. It's a ledger. He cried, loud, messy. I made tea because I'm not a cartoon villain and because hot water forces pauses. You're cruel, he said. No, I said, I'm consistent. The only thing that changed is the subsidies. He asked what he was supposed to do. Exactly what you wanted to be, I said. Independent. That's when the front door opened behind me, and everything escalated. The door opened behind me without drama. No slam, no music cue, just timing. I turned, already knowing, before I fully looked. Aaron stood in the entryway, one hand on the doorknob, the other holding a Target bag with paper towels and dish soap. He paused when he saw Evan. Then his eyes flicked to me, not asking permission, just checking temperature. That look said, I'm here. What do you need? Evan saw him and stiffened like a wire pulled too tight. Oh, Evan said, voice sharpening. So this is what you've been doing. You replace me. Aaron didn't flinch. He set the bag down and spoke evenly. You left. That cracked something. Evan laughed. High, brittle. You're really going to play house with her? After everything? You stole my life. No, I said, calm enough to feel heavy. You abandoned it. Evan stepped forward, crossing a line he didn't have permission to test. He pointed at Aaron. You're a homewrecker. Aaron blinked once. You broke your own home. That's when Evan shoved past me, shoulder first, aiming for Aaron. It was clumsy and desperate, the kind of move that only works in stories where consequences are optional. I stepped between them and put my hand up. Out, I said, not loud, not angry, just final. Evan swung anyway. The slap didn't land clean. It clipped my forearm instead of my face. Pain flashed, sharp and bright, then settled into heat. That was the moment something switched, not emotionally, but procedurally. I stepped back and pulled out my phone. 911, I said clearly. I have a trespasser at my address. Attempted assault. Evan froze, then exploded. Names, threats, promises to ruin me. Aaron didn't move. He stood there like a statue that lifts. The cruiser arrived in 7 minutes. I gave facts, not feelings. Dates. Prior requests to leave. The strike. The texts. The blocked numbers. The officer listened, nodded, and turned to Evan. He explained trespass. Explained consequences. Explained why coming back here was a bad plan. Do you want to pursue charges? He asked me. I want a record, I said, a paper trail. Report filed. Evan left under the kind of quiet that follows losing the script. No audience, no applause. Just gravity, doing what gravity does. After the door closed, Aaron exhaled. You okay? I am now, I said. He stayed until the adrenaline drained, then left with a kiss on my temple and a promise to text when he got home. No pressure, no performance. I cleaned the kitchen, checked the locks, sat on the couch, and let the quiet settle into my bones. The next week, I audited everything one last time. Killed lingering subscriptions, changed cloud permissions, prepaid property taxes, used the wedding fund to fix the roof flashing and replace a dying dishwasher, threw the rest into an index fund and a trip I'd postponed because I was saving for an event. The event turned out to be peace. Evan tried once more. An email. Subject line, please. Body. Revisions, nostalgia, a loan request dressed as remorse. I replied with one sentence. Do anything for yourself. Then I archived it. This wasn't revenge. It was a systems update. The old version of me proved dependability by catching people mid-fall. The new version lets jumpers meet the ground. Call it harsh. I call it accurate. I didn't stage a spectacle. I canceled a wedding, reclaimed what was legally mine, cut off unauthorized access, and closed the door, literally and figuratively. 4 months after he chose someone else, he came back begging like nothing happened. Tried to move in, took a swing, learned the word trespass. Revenge wasn't fireworks. It was paperwork, locks, silence, systems over scenes. And that's how I reclaimed my life without lifting anything heavier than a pen.